Welcome to the Naked Truth podcast. In this podcast, we're talking about all things spirituality, personal growth, and we're having authentic, honest, and real conversations with inspiring people without the social mask. We're talking about the current events in the world and how we are being called to show up. My name is Mayke, and I'm super excited to go on this journey with you, where you can safely explore about your purpose and more. Welcome, listeners, to a new podcast. We're here with Nick Good again, and we want to talk about a few things that are actually happening right now. We want to talk about purpose and things that we just want to share some wisdom and insights that will be valid and that will be relevant for these times and whatever, actually.
Yeah. And that's a hallmark of truth. It's eternally relevant. It's never irrelevant.
Mm-hmm.
That's a hallmark of truth. That's a fact. Like you can
Okay.
say love is eternally relevant.
Yeah.
It's always relevant that you love yourself and demonstrate love through kindness and all the rest of it into the world. It's always relevant.
Yeah.
And so is truth.
Well, let's talk about love, because how important is love? Love is like such a key ingredient in times of transformation and in times of awakening and in times of keeping your peace and keeping your sanity when everything else seems to be crumbling around you. It's such a key ingredient on the spiritual path.
That's right, and never more so than today in the world, because there's so much fear. And as we have been guided by various scriptures and teachers, perfect love casts out fear. Perfect love. That means God's love. That means the love of the light within you, the highest expression of love. Not your ego love that is possessive and jealous and attached and gets angry and is conditional and all that stuff. That doesn't do shit. But perfect love, that sorts the fear out.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what does that mean? That means that you have to be able to go to that place inside of yourself. You have to be able to go to that place inside of yourself that is that infinite and eternal love. And from there, surrender your ideas and your beliefs and your sense of self. Move away from your physical, mental, emotional self into a deeper experience of that love inside of yourself. Through peace, through faith, through compassion, mm-hmm. through surrender, through reverence, respect, humility, love and gratitude. Mm-hmm. I did that whole walk I did yesterday. I was telling you about 3 hours or more in reverence, respect, humility, love and gratitude. It was so beautiful. Just walking with reverence, having respect for myself and respect for people, respect for life. With humility. What does that mean? I'm nothing. I know nothing. I am nothing. That's innocence. It was so beautiful. And then love, just embodying love just into my energy presence. And then gratitude. It was like the most awesome little equation. And it just put me into this beautiful space. And then you're able to receive so much directly from life. And that's what it's all about. That's what we are. We're beings that are designed to receive so much from life. And right now, we're in a time, and this is like late April at the moment, coming into May, where we are receiving so much naturally from life. The presence of life coming through the light, coming through the sun, coming through the elements, coming through the nature, coming through the trees, coming through the grass. There's so much we're receiving right now. So if we can move off the fear frequency, very important to understand this, you cannot receive when you're on the fear frequency, because what you're doing then is you're projecting your fear into the world. You're actively projecting unconsciously your fear into the world and distorting your experience of reality. Meanwhile, reality is bombarding you with the ultimate energy you need to go through a personal transformation, which is very peaceful, very beautiful, very natural, that allows you to experience more of who you actually are. It couldn't be any more perfectly designed.
And it is right in front of us. If we just go out into nature, we can see, feel, smell, breathe in that unconditional love that's always there for us. That's right. It's like we were just talking before this podcast started. We were talking about the dark forces which are hiding in plain sight. Yeah. But the same is for the forces of love. That's right. We're just so focused on our outer world and on our work and our relationships and things like that, and our things, our material possessions, that we just forget to see what's right in front of us. The birds that sing to us every day, the sun that comes up every day, like the nature. It's so beautiful. That's right. We have to choose to focus on that. That's what our responsibility is. Yeah. And all the negative forces in life, no matter what form they assume, whether it's a political form or a technological form or a viral form, whatever it is, whatever form the negative forces assume, their strategy is to generate fear and to get you so frightened that you get stuck in your mind thinking about all of this survival related stuff. Oh my God, I'm going to die, or how am I going to survive? And these are all really valid fears. Mm-hmm. We're not undervaluing the power of when our survival is threatened, or our financial security is threatened, or whatever is threatened. We're not undervaluing this. What we're saying is that this incredible tension and stress that gets put on us in these situations is exactly what we need to demonstrate the integrity, which is strength, to focus on what really matters in life. That's the whole deal. And if you can't do that, then you're not going to be able to deal with your own power. You're not going to be able to handle the energies of 5D or 4D or whatever, because you're unstable. You're too easily shifted out of a focus on your inner nature into the illusion of life. You're not trustworthy with more power, because when you go into these higher dimensions, particularly the fifth dimension, whatever you think and feel, it manifests instantaneously. And more and more of us are experiencing that instantaneous manifestations in this reality already. How quickly things manifest, and you get that instant karma, or whatever you want to call it. Mm-hmm. So when you're let loose in higher dimensions of life and greater, more expansiveness and essentially power, you have to be fundamentally capable to deal with that. Mm. And in a place of absolute sovereignty and absolutely. That's right. And this reality is the testing ground for that. It's where you're initiated. Yeah. And we being think prepared. Yeah, and our egos and the conditioning and programming of the controllers of this culture, we think we're like, this whole survival fear, or just this whole, just work hard and produce and consume and keep digging and grinding and working within this system to maintain this system and keep it going. It's myopic. It's myopic. It doesn't include the fact that you're part of infinite realities, infinite possibilities that you are perfectly designed to explore and adventure through forever. Yeah. And some people might question, or they even ask myself, like, if all of this is true, then why are we not being told this? Why are we not being taught this? Governments, parents, This is the question sometimes people ask, because they assume that when it's important, they would have been taught about this. They would have known about this. But it's exactly the point, because we have to get into our own sovereignty and integrity. We have to go through these challenges, these tribunes. Is that how they call it? Tribulations. Yeah. We have to move through those challenging initiations to find the truth of life, to find the secrets of life that are hidden, but are available to everyone. That's right. So that's the fantastic thing. Point that is hidden from us. That's right. We have to find our way. Yeah, and the journey is an archetypal journey called the hero's journey. And we're all on it.
That's right. And it has the archetypes on this journey are fixed, and we know what they are because we love them. It's our favourite stories, our favourite movies, and it must be this against all odds, absolutely impossible. The last possible second still looks like calamity and disaster, but we pull it off. The hero pulls it off.
It's funny because it kind of becomes boring to watch these movies because it's basically the same story with different characters, but you already know what's going to happen, or there's going to be some, unexpected thing. But
dramatic.
You already know the end.
That's right.
And all good. So it kind of becomes boring to watch movies like that, but a lot of us fail to recognize that this is happening in our lives as well. And right at the moment when everything seems to be completely collapsed, lost, and gone forever, is the moment of great rebirth.
Yeah, but only if you're on the hero's journey.
Yes.
If you're a bystander, if you're still projecting this hero's journey outside of yourself, and you're looking to the movie screen to nourish this part of your being, or you're looking to the savior to come and save you, whatever form you think that is, you're in the delusion. And you're going to continue to be deluded, and you're going to suffer. That's 100% guaranteed. You're going to fucking suffer. So life sets this up perfectly for us, and it's always the same, except there are certain moments in history when it becomes critical, absolutely critical. And we're in this, 2020 just happens to be one of those years. I was saying it like at the beginning of this year, I don't remember, in Bali, I said, hey, 2020 is going to kick your ass. You have no idea what's coming around the corner. It's going to be out of control, the energy. I knew it was. Yeah. Energetically, I didn't know the details, but energetically it's like, okay, this is the year.
It's game on.
So it's game on. So what does that mean? That means, okay, man up, sack up. It's time to put your money where your mouth is. It's time to walk the freaking walk, not just talk the talk. It's not about, we've just gone through the information age where everybody thought it was enough to get the information, to have all these ideas, these new beliefs, and to start to promote those, teach those, and disseminating the information was enough. We've just gone through that phase, and now we know that it's not enough. We have to embody this. We have to actually embody it. We have to be the change that we want to see in the world. That's what Gandhi said. Well, what does that mean? That means literally we have to go through a cellular transformation. Our DNA has to shift into something that it's not. And it's so fantastic, this quantum leap from this old survival-based bottom 3 chakra trapped consciousness into this upper 4 chakra activated, still grounded in the world version of yourself. This is a supernatural transformation. It's a quantum leap into your future self, your higher self, grounding it into the world. This is absolutely incredible what we're talking about here. It's the most exciting possibility there is, and the most challenging.
And it's huge. And I remember I got the first channeling that the guides were speaking through me about, and I wasn't even aware of about all this 3 or 5D stuff. I think it was 2 years ago summer, and the message was so clear. It was really time to make a choice whether you want to stay in 3D, live your life, do your thing, or whether you want to make the transition now, which is going to be a way more smoother ride back then, switching towards 5D, because there's going to be like I saw this pitchfork. Is this what a pitchfork is?
Not really, no, that's a funnel.
How do you say it? Like a day-splitting when a road crosses into...
Oh yeah, a fork in the road,
A fork in the road.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what I saw, and it's like we were all... Because people were still like playing their games, still living their lives, and that was just the message. Get on it, get on that 50.
Well, still are. There's fucking millions of people playing the game.
I know, of course, still a lot of people are, but then the message was clear to do it back then, because the ride was going to be a lot easier.
Yeah.
And then now we can see that those of us that have done most of their inner work and that are easily hanging out in those fifth dimensional realms and states of consciousness, they're not crushed when this thing happens.
That's
like
right.
the current events in the world, they're not crushed.
That's right.
They're thriving, they're flourishing.
Yeah.
Of course, they have to adapt, like we have to adapt our
Definitely.
businesses and things like that.
And there's still massive challenges.
Of course,
Yeah.
but we're not crushed.
That's
and,
right.
and those who have not done the inner work because they just didn't know about it, let's be real, a lot of people still don't know what's going on and how to navigate these times. It's really challenging for them right now. And it's a lot more challenging for them with this than it would have been
terrible
2-3 years ago.
Terrible time. It's critical.
Yeah.
It's critical. So what are you going to do? What are you going to do? Well, the good news is you've got us to guide you, which is a lot. I personally have experienced a life without guidance and been crashing into all kinds of things, learning my lessons the hard way all the way along. But there's this. Let's just go back to the love thing. The necessity to love yourself, to demonstrate love. Love is a verb. To actually express love towards yourself and towards others is absolutely critical right now. And that love, your capacity to love, needs to be increased by your love for spirit, or the light inside you, whatever you want to call it, the presence of life inside you, the invisible presence that's inside you. Your love for that you have to let it pour into you so that you embody more of this light, you embody more of this love, because that's where your transformation is activated. Without that, you're going to get in trouble. So
it's our connection to life, really, and also to nature.
Yeah,
that's such a big thing. It's such an intimate
Yeah,
relationship.
but it's the essence of all that, the connection to the essence of life and the essence of nature. And we need sensitivity for that to connect with the essence. It's all about the essence. It's all about the essence. The more sensitive you are, the more you're into the presence of life, the essence of life, the energy of life, coming through nature, coming through yourself, coming through each other. That's what it's all about. Mm-hmm. So that's the key foundational thing at the moment. Setting aside time every day to value this connection, this pure natural connection you have with life, the essence of life, whatever that means to you, however you're drawn to experience that, and to let it in, to soak it up. Your soul's like a sponge. It needs this essential life connection. And when you soak it up, you get activated. You get activated. You just become a better version of yourself. You're more in the synchronicity, and you show up for what you've got to show up for, and you're able to deliver what you're able to deliver. And no matter how bad it seems, all this scary stuff, financial pressure, like massive financial strain, survival fears in all kinds of different ways, the terror of what's coming around the corner and down the street for you personally, in a business way, your family and all the rest of it, the probabilities of the future if you're projecting forward in fear about it. No matter how bad it is, we can deliver the gift of ourselves. That's what we're supposed to do. Life, this whole thing that we didn't get taught it, we did. It's just, it's within this deluge of all this other information and misinformation and blah, 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 eons of blah, blah, blah. But we got taught it. It's in the essence of all the spiritual teachings. It's in the essence of all the scriptures. It's the essence. It's the simplest thing in the world. Love this thing inside yourself that's invisible and is life itself and shines through the light of the sun and the song of the birds and all the rest of it. And be kind and nice. Ooh, that's really difficult, all that, isn't it? Not at all. That's it. That's your fundamental equation for success in life. But the thing about it is now, because the world, or what we call the world, which there really is just all these different billions of different perspectives of their reality, which is a holographic thing anyway, and we can get into all that. But your whole challenge, the reason the world is there anyway, and you're in it, is to demonstrate this this expression of this spiritual thing, which you can call the spirit of life or the spirit of love inside you, whatever you want to call it, or the light, can you demonstrate it, express it as yourself? This is delivering the gift of yourself. And you can, when you take the time to commune or merge with it. Your soul's like a little sponge. It needs the spiritual light in order to activate it. And when it gets activated, you, the person, become a better version of yourself. But you have to do it in humility. What we've been doing is all the ego projections. We project this is what I believe I should be like, you know what I mean? But that's all programming and conditioning from the Matrix. Mm-hmm. You should have all this money, you should have this big house, you should have these big muscles, you should work and grind and fucking grind and compete and basically be a predator for business. Be a warrior, go out and kill it, dominate, go out there and kick ass. It's a battlefield.
Well, it's the funny thing is, like, the ironic thing is, the battlefield is you're competing with yourself. That's only and ever.
Well, that's right, because the ego externalizes everything, but the battle is an internal battle. Yeah. And what are you battling against? Well, you're battling against this various things inside of yourself, and these have been isolated and categorized by brilliant psychologists in the West, guys like Carl Jung and Freud and Joseph Campbell and now Dr. Jordan Peterson and all these amazing minds. And in the East, in a different way, through mythologies. For example, West is still Greek, the Greek mythologies, the archetypes, all these wonderful stories. But they've been given names. For example, this dragon monster inside ourselves that Jung or Freud called the super id, or the dragon thing outside of ourselves that we need to be frightened of. They call that the super id, and then the thing inside ourselves that we need to be terrified of, the monster inside ourselves, the id, which is the ego. So the ego projects its own fear outside into the world and anticipates something scary and life-threatening is coming to get it. Yeah. And this society cultivates that. Yeah. So the reason why we're not taught the most important things in life in school is because the education system is part of the system that is governed by the governments, and the governments are the representatives of the most powerful people in the world. They have been for thousands and thousands of years. And through these thousands of years, these most powerful people in the world have become the most powerful people in the world by murdering all the other kings and all the emperors and all the rest of it. There used to be countless numbers of kings and emperors all over the place, but the strongest ones, or the most mad, insane ones, the biggest psychopaths, murdered all the other ones. And they created the systems, religious systems, political systems, financial systems, educational systems, media systems, and they own them all. Health systems, quote unquote health systems, unhealth systems.
Disease systems.
And so because they want to control, because they are bound to the forces of evil, they've demonstrated that through thousands of years of bloodshed and slavery and misery and ego and greed and selfishness and all the wonderful things that go with the dark forces. Because they're bound to that, they're bound to disinform and create as much of a negative effect through education and whatever as they can. They're not bound to tell you the secrets of life and encourage you to how to become empowered. They are bound to create the ultimate challenge, an obstacle for you, which is gigantic, because it needs to be gigantic. It's appropriate for it to be gigantic because our souls are gigantic. This divine love is gigantic. It's all powerful. Yeah. So we have to have the ultimate challenge to face it. This is how it's supposed to be.
So they're bound to create the polarity and the duality, because we live in this world where duality, polarity are our nature, really.
Well, that's right.
In this reality.
Well, that's the nature of the electromagnetic universe. It is polarized.
Yeah.
They don't create it, but what they are, they're forces of negativity within there, and depending on basically how all the souls are projecting into this potential, this negative potential, that's the forms that it assumes.
Yeah.
So all these horrible structures that we're most people are imprisoned by have been called forth by their own projections into it. It's always different how it manifests, how evil manifests. It's always different. It depends on on what's being projected into it all. But polarity exists in the electromagnetic universe, and that super tension between the polarized fields is the learning ground and the growing ground for the point of consciousness within it. Because you have to develop the skill, this is what meditation is to sit in peace as a focal point in this massive field of dynamic tension and polarity. That's your goal, is to sit in peace there, and then deepen your sense of self. So you go off that vibrational field, because it's just 3D and a bit of 4D, into the higher 4D and the fifth dimensional thing, which doesn't have the same polarized stuff, because it's not made of electromagnetic energy anymore.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about these dark forces and agendas in the world just for a moment, because quite a lot of people are becoming aware of these, of the forces, of the agendas, and it brings a lot of us into a state of more fear.
Yeah.
Obviously, that is that's the goal of the agendas. But it's such a good realization to see that the dark, especially we're seeing that now, all that they're doing with their dark agendas, playing them out, it's only bringing more light. It's like we are sharpening our knives, if you will, to really stand in our light and to live that journey and to live that hero's journey. So instead of the natural reaction of our bodies to go into like attack mode, like we need to attack these dark forces. I mean, I had the thought we need to burn these towers, not the 4G but the other one. We need to burn those towers, but that is like the opposite of what we want to be doing here, because we have to see that these dark forces are just bringing more light into the world, or bringing more light. The polarization allows us to step more into our light versions, and I think that's beautiful.
That's right. It's a critical choice, and the wonderful thing about it is because they invented the internet for the purposes of control, but the internet is disseminating so much information, and it's allowing people to get on the same page very, very quickly, like never before. Their whole strategy of divide and conquer is an ancient strategy that's in all the manuals for how to win a war, how to control a population, especially when the population outnumbers you by even millions. Divide and conquer. When the Dutch went down to South Africa, and the Boers and all of that tried to start, take control of South Africa. When I went down there playing rugby in the early 90s, or actually the mid 80s, they were it was still apartheid, but there was a tiny population of whites there compared to the blacks. It was like ridiculous numbers of difference between the blacks and the whites. So why didn't the blacks just overrun the whole thing? Because there was 26 different tribes there, and they hated each other worse than they hated the blacks. I mean, the whites. That would merrily go around and chop each other up with axes and machetes and all kinds of stuff. I swear to God, it was like really heavy. Divide and conquer, So the divisive, this whole thing, the notion that, something has come from, wherever it's come from. For example, when you look at, when you listen to guys like Michael Tsarion, David Icke, these kinds of guys that are Jordan Maxwell, that are full-time investigative journalists, scholars par excellence. They dig and dig and dig and dig and dig and dig for truth. Extremely credible people in terms of the amount of research that they put into it before they say one thing about the way things are. When you look at the work of those kinds of guys, they will, tell you quite merrily that negative extraterrestrials are responsible behind everything for the situation on the planet. This system that farms negative energy through fear, and that these negative extraterrestrials are interdimensional, and the Christians call them demons, and that these demonic entities require food, and the food comes from a terrible, terrible source. Okay, now, but even if that is all true, even if it is all happening and has been happening for however many thousands of years, it's still a reflection of consciousness projecting out its own unresolved traumas. That's what it is. So you can't, point that finger out there without pointing the other three back towards you. And this is one of the most challenging parts of it all, is to look at this monstrous thing, this monstrous alien part of yourself that is devouring your own innocence. It eats your own innocence. It drinks your own blood for horrible reasons. What does that mean? Well, when you understand what that means, it basically means that your ego is assassinating your inner child. It's brutalizing your own inner child. It's absolutely disrespecting, has no reverence whatsoever for this beautiful part of you that is a wellspring of your own divinity. You can see this in children, when the children are running around and they're just so full of life, and they're so carefree, and they're so joyful, and they're so spontaneous. They express all their emotions. They're so all-inclusive. They don't care whether you're black or white or fat or skinny or a girl or a boy. It's just innocence expressing itself. And that's the part of us that our ego is monstrously devouring. So people, once they mature to a certain degree, which means they've been conditioned and programmed by the system for long enough, then they completely ignore their inner child. They're cruel to themselves. They say dreadful things to themselves. They're impatient. They're nasty towards themselves. They don't like themselves. People hate themselves. They completely shut down with their creativity, with their imagination, with their spontaneity. They don't express their emotions. All of this stuff. Yeah. And you multiply that by millennia, you end up with an archetype of the devil. 100% guaranteed. And you unpack that back to if this universe, this reality, this cosmos has a beginning point, then it was begun with consciousness projecting forms, because that's what consciousness does. And if consciousness projects in fear or projects in ego, it's going to create something gigantic that's going to come back at it and show it what it's been projecting. Yeah. The whole thing's a mirror. Mm-hmm. And the victim that wants to blame someone, something else outside of itself, it's complete illusion that there is even anyone else. Yeah. It's all aspects of the self. Yeah. So this is a big thing for the ego to swallow. It's huge. Yeah. It's huge. Like, no, you have to get your shit together. Yeah. You have to start surrendering your sense of self and with reverence, respect, humility, love and gratitude, gladly die to who you think you are and all your ideas and everything, even if it's just for a second, and absorb the light, the pure, infinite light within you.
And the you means we, each and every one of us, you and I, if there's separation, I include it.
Yeah, that's right.
And
we all have to do that.
Thanks for that beautiful explanation of the mirror, because it's something that we're all looking at. The children being rescued right now, we're seeing all of that, and people are asking themselves like, whoa, this shit is so incredibly horrifying, but we have to indeed look within. The download that I got was, and of course I'm sure you're going to agree on this, it is about forgiveness in its essence. Can we forgive those incredibly dark parts of ourselves that are abusing our own inner child, etc.? Because only if we can truly forgive all of our darkness, our greed, our hatred, our raping, our killing that we do, whether it's physical or on an energetic level, if we cannot forgive that within ourselves, we can never forgive it in the world.
That's right.
And that's what this reflection is showing to us right now, where we have to look in that mirror, which is outside. We have to look at all these dark forces.
That's right. It's a reflection, and forgiveness is the essence of compassion.
Yeah.
And this is the whole thing. Can you exist in that degree of compassion? And these are huge things we're talking about here. Huge things. But the thing about the notion that, you know, the astonishing thing is as you peel back this whole thing about the awakening of humanity comes through the big slap and the trauma. People are waking up to the fact that there is political evil, political manipulation, that politicians are connected to an invisible controlling force that is the establishment, and has been for centuries, that they have sponsored, that they're always on the same side, they're always on the side of both sides of wars, that they sponsored Hitler. Hitler was sponsored by Wall Street and by Zionist Jews. That's completely proven now, for example, and so on and so forth. But all of these aspects of treachery and demonic activity, like utter predatorial horror, have been going forever. They're all the way there in history. They're in the Bible. Yeah. The Bible is packed with this shit. Yeah. When Jesus was born, as the story goes, what did they do? Herod said, right, go around and kill all the first, all the boys under 3 years old. Just go around and murder all the children with a big smile on the face. Get this job done. So, let alone all the wars, when masses of people will go and murder, someone else in the neighbouring country and murder all the everyone, and rape all the women merrily, and everybody gets it. There's the monstrosity inside us is the worst thing that anyone wants to possibly complete. Oh, I wouldn't do anything like that. Oh, really? Yeah. Well, wouldn't it be interesting if we could look at your past lives? What have you been up to in your merry little jaunts? If you're now faced with this reflection in the world that's so terrifying and horrific, it wouldn't be in the mirror if it wasn't inside us. And
it's easy to admit
my God,
the victim, but not to admit that we're the victimizer. That's where it's at. This is
really, really, really the bitter pill to swallow. Yeah. So we have to get over ourselves, be open to the fact of all possibilities that this is showing up the evil inside of ourselves, and dissolve it. Surrender in our innocence and our humility, with that reverence, respect, humility, love and gratitude. And when you do that, you are able to demonstrate the power of love.
And the only way to do it is to acknowledge those dark forces within ourselves, because a lot of people on the spiritual path just want to go to the 5D without skipping the whole 4D stuff.
That's right.
Just want to go to love and light without looking into the darkness, right? That's right. There's a lot of spiritual bypassing going on, where everything is love and light. Yes, on the higher planes everything is love and light. The dark forces are part of the light agenda. It's all part of Source, part of God. Dark is. But we cannot truly move into there if we're going to bypass and ignore those parts of ourselves.
The monster is the gatekeeper.
Yeah.
There's always a dragon on a cave. This takes us back to the hero's journey. The hero is not going to all that trouble to train himself and to take his weapons and go through all that hardship to go and have a freaking picnic with the fair maiden down by the freaking stream. He's got to go and face the ugliest monster in the land that's eaten all the fucking children. He's got to go and kill that thing. That's what he lives for. That's what he lives for. And that is an archetypal aspect of the journey of consciousness that we're doing our best to project outside of ourselves and get and be terrified about it, because this scary thing is going to come and get us. Whatever form it's in, viral, political, socio-economic, war, and the enemy, whatever. Extraterrestrials, we're all going to get taken over by them or whatever, all that stuff. It's all projections, but it's projections of different aspects of of consciousness. The whole extraterrestrial thing, for example, is an awakening of consciousness. It's an awakening of consciousness, but it's just that there's so much fear with that.
Well, yeah, and I also want to address, you were just mentioning David Icke and all those guys who were sharing a lot of this. What is missing for me in the things that he is sharing, from what I've seen, I haven't seen all of his work, is the presence of the benevolent extraterrestrial beings, of the loving extraterrestrial beings. So still, you can question whether some information that's being shared, is it still part of an agenda to spread fear? Because I believe if we mention the negative forces and the negative extraterrestrials, we should mention in the same breath the positive, the loving forces that are here as well.
Yeah, but you have to have experience of that, yeah? And I would say that you're right. The vast majority of extraterrestrial and interdimensional storytelling coming through whatever books, films, etc., is part of the agenda to promote fear. But also, this notion that no one's going to wake up when things are okay. Mm-hmm. We will just accept, like, if this current situation just goes away, it's going to be like, oh, thank God for that. Let's get back to work and grinding and,
eat our pizzas.
Yeah,
everything.
Exactly. And watch Netflix and, etc., etc.
Yeah.
Go out and get shit-faced, take a load of drugs, way. Yeah. We're such a liberated society.
Oh yeah, so open-minded.
Let's have all this crazy sex and, whatever is going on. It's like, the more the merrier. Woo! That's not the path for the spiritualization and the manifestation of human potential. It's just not. Mm. So something has to happen to sting us, to wake us up like brutally. That's why most people awaken through negative trauma in their life. It's always a collapsing of the existing condition that catalyzes the awakening. That's just a simple track record of humanity. Mm-hmm. And so we're in this time right now. I think when it comes to David Icke, he's a guy, you've got to understand where he comes from. He comes from working class England, poor environment, the BBC, the most institutionalized propaganda machine for the British establishment, which is absolutely embedded in the control of humanity, undoubtedly, and some of the worst malevolence being played out. For example, Jimmy Savile has been given the dubious title of the world's greatest paedophile. He had 80 children's hospitals he was a patron of. Wow. 80 children's hospitals with the keys to the door. Yeah. Friends with Prince Charles and, the royal family and blah, 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 this whole internal clique. Now, David Icke was a presenter on the BBC, News and Sport, after he'd retired from professional soccer. So he's come out of this terrible place, had some kind of spiritual experience, which was completely overwhelming for him, only energetic, with no cushion of gently, moving into this through research, and he was actually interested in this. Wasn't interested in any of this stuff at all. He had some kind of energetic awakening when he was in Peru, and then his eyes were opened to the abhorrent evil at work in the world. And then from then on, 18 hours a day, pretty much for the last 30 years, he's been devoted to uncovering this web of manipulation and deceit, which is so complex in this modern time, and then tracking it back to ancient times. So he's been absolutely obsessed with that, while he's been going through a terrible ordeal of being vilified and just the laughing stock of England, like couldn't go anywhere without people pointing at him in the street, laughing their asses off at him, taking the piss out of him. So that developed a lot of, resentment and negative emotion. So he's been on a dark, really a dark process. And he's now emerged. He's actually the happiest and the lightest I've ever seen him. But he has a position to play in life. I talk about it the bridge. You know, there's like a bridge. On this side is the darkness, and on this side is the light. And we have to go over the bridge, and we have a different position to play on the bridge. His position is in the mosh pit on this side. In the mosh pit, in the horrible place, and he's holding that place. But he's all about not telling people what to do. He's all about, now I'm going to tell you what's going on. You decide what to do. And his constant message is, we are infinite light. We are infinite consciousness, and we are so much greater than this whole thing. He's not particularly into positive, benevolent extraterrestrials. He's not particularly into any of that stuff whatsoever.
It makes sense that one has to play the role that he's playing. It's just that a lot of people are not. But again, this is our journey. This is our tribulation to find out the complete truth by ourselves, and know that not any one person, nor David Icke, nor either one of us can share the whole perspective for you, because that's up to you.
Exactly.
To do that for yourself.
Exactly. So, we're all points of consciousness experiencing this holographic wonder, and we just happen to be, because of technology, basically, internet, and before that, books. We have the opportunity to get into absorbing information, and the more people that absorb the same kind of information form these collective groups of consciousness. But there's so many billions of points of consciousness in this in this reality. It's a phenomenal time. And one of the most important things that's going on is this accomplishing this critical mass, where the thing will tip in the favor of light. And so that's where you get all these new souls or young souls being born into the world, and the ones that are in their late teens now, or mid-teens, and in their early 20s are like they're the purest souls. And there's this mad scramble, specifically with the vaccination agenda and the 5G, to discombobulate their electromagnetic energy systems, their electrochemistry, to send them wonky. It's a mad scramble, but it's not going to work.
No.
It's not going to work.
No, I feel that too,
Yeah.
clearly.
It's just not going to work, because it's going to be exposed for the terrible, terrible thing it is. And these people that are perpetrating this wickedness in 3D are the most wounded of us all. So to be a psychopath, completely devoid of compassion, having no compassion whatsoever, couldn't care less how many lives you ruin through your action or inaction. To be that level of psychopath, you have to be broken inside. Your soul has to be obliterated. Yeah. And they do that when you're very young. This is part of the conditioning of the children.
These people need the compassion the most, the compassion
Oh my God.
towards
They
them.
are the children of monsters.
Yeah.
And this is in our historical history and mythology. When you go back to Greek mythology, the gods of the Greek gods that everyone's familiar with, Zeus and Hera and Hermes and all of these characters in Greek mythology, they are the children of the Titans. And Kronos was the king of the Titans, the main god. And Kronos ate all his children.
He did, yeah.
He ate them all, except Zeus, because his mother threw a stone wrapped a stone up and in the bedding clothes, and Kronos swallowed the stone, and Zeus escaped being consumed by his father. But this is archetype. Yeah. Kronos is the god of time. His children are his offspring. Yeah. So we're talking about supernatural levels of consciousness, whether you're talking about real beings or archetypes. It doesn't matter. It doesn't, just because something's an archetype doesn't mean it didn't exist, and it doesn't have to exist to be an archetype. It could be both. The great definition of mythology is something that may or may not have happened historically, but it's always happening now inside us. So what does that mean? That means this monstrous being that is bound in time, it's part of time-space, so we're in the polarized universe, devours its own children. That's like a big clue towards the catastrophic consequences of assuming an ego form in reality. Yeah. Catastrophic. And it's not just in Greek mythology, it's in all the mythologies. It's a disaster from the beginning. In the Bible, you've got Genesis, the creation of the world, this absolute paradise. You've got Adam and Eve, supposedly the first creation, a man and woman. It's a fucking disaster. Immediately, instantly. As soon as they have kids, the brothers are murdering each other. Instant disaster. Mm-hmm. It's a disaster. So this is the wonder of life. This is like, okay, deal with this shit. The absolute shock of what physical, material reality, the consequences of moving into it as consciousness, when you are, basically amnesic. You have no recollection of who you are or what you are. You're just now this thing that exists. Yeah. Get on with it. Good luck. And you're so powerful. You have the power to create universes. And
you do so all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a wonderful, so the giganticness of the story, when you expand your awareness, it allows you to accommodate evil and have compassion for it. It's like, no, you don't need to eat children. You don't need to do dreadful things. You don't need to do that. These people need, sedation and just, let's put you over there and just, watch you for a while, go through your process, because this is... Oh.
And for us, referring back to the download I got, was the part about forgiveness. We have to forgive those parts of ourselves and those parts that we are being shown in the mirror, yet at the same time set a very clear boundary and set a boundary to evil. So you're right, like we should, I believe, treat these people with a lot of compassion while setting a super clear boundary. Your evil is not welcome. Like,
that's
I'm
right.
not accepting these deeds of violence.
That's right. But that boundary is true. That boundary naturally occurs as you swallow the bitter pill of truth. It's a terrible thing to swallow. That's why most people don't want to look at this at all. Don't want to go there. It's like no.
It's too much.
It's way too much. Mm. It's way too much. So this is the wonder of life, that it contains all this, and as you get more and more and more into the understanding of it, your consciousness, your awareness expands to such a gigantic space, because it's an enormous story, and that expansion it's absolutely critical for your empowerment, for you to step into your true inner nature
and to recognize who you are.
That's right. And all of this is going on in this space-time continuum, which is a manifestation of the energy of life. Just like when you're watching a river flow, you see these spirals naturally appear in the river. That's a healthy river. A dead river will not do that. It's just dead water flowing by. But a healthy, alive river has this silky quality to it, and it's always spiraling, these little vortices of whirling energy. This is the nature of water, the river of life, which is a reflection of the nature of consciousness, the river of life. Mm-hmm. So the river of life flows, and while it's flowing, there's a vortex appears, a whirling eddy, and this is space-time. As soon as it starts doing this, now you have a space-time continuum that has a beginning, a middle, and an end. And we happen to be in this critical time now where we're winding down to the last movements in this moment where it pops. Yeah. And then there's another one, there's another experience in the river of life. It's not the end of life, but it is the end of all these cycles of time with all this human history in it.
Yeah.
And so we are challenged. We're in this incredibly challenging thing where we have to integrate a momentous amount of human history, our own personal karma, what we've been living, plus our ancestors and the whole history. We're coming to this critical moment where it's going to freaking pop. That's why we need this centered sense of self that is meditation, that is connection with our essence, and we can stay in there in this experience of peace with this expanded sense of self and consciousness, and be able to deal with the challenges of today in the modern world from that context.
I just got this vision as you were speaking about, the whirlwind, how do you call it? The vortex in the water.
The whirling vortex, yeah.
Yeah, let's say you have that in the sink, right? Where there's food, leftovers, and there's some water, and it's being pulled down. What I just saw is usually when the vortex just starts, the food is going to be spinning around, like spinning, but it's not until the end, like the point you're describing we're in right now, where it's actually being sucked out to the drain. Where the old gunk is being sucked out.
That's right.
So this is why there's so much darkness and crap we're being seen right now, because it's being sucked out. We're in that tiny moment in space
exactly.
time.
And what we're witnessing is a purging of the human soul, the consciousness of the human soul, which is a gigantic thing. It's unimaginable, vast amount of space-time is being purged. It's just like detoxing. It's just like that. If you've been on a junk food diet for thousands of years, and then suddenly you're put on a diet of, a pint of wheatgrass every day, you are going to be stinking and puking and shitting out the worst.
Oh yeah.
Terrible. And so we're witnessing the worst expressions of human nature are coming out now. But it's focused in this political group and these power centers, these secret governments, this
because it's literally what we're seeing right now, like the things that are being revealed, like the things that are happening literally underground. It is the worst possible thing you could think of.
That's right.
It is. There's nothing worse.
Well, most people couldn't even imagine what's going on in these places because it's so unthinkable.
Yeah.
But in a way, thank heavens for these, these individuals that are purging this so obviously that we can actually see.
Yeah.
It's terrible. It's absolutely horrific.
But to round it up, we're realizing we're in these times for a great, great, great purpose.
Yeah.
That we are just sucking out
the
worst stuff ever.
Yeah.
But like a new time awaits us with so much love and with so much beauty.
But we have to go through the initiation. We have to go through the birth canal. It's terribly challenging. Yeah. Most souls are not going to be able to make the jump to light speed in their physical bodies. It's going to be way too much for them. So if you're listening to this and your ears are pricking up a little bit and you're feeling something here, it means you have to start prioritizing these things and valuing these things and making them the most important thing in your life. Taking it very, very seriously, enjoying it enormously, but making sure you're not one of those individuals that's going down the plug hole in fear and still, repressing and suppressing and, in your myopic perspective of yourself. Yeah. It's a great time to be alive, but the forces of evolution, we've been out of sync with those forces for maybe forever, or certainly from the beginning of this cycle. You imagine 260,000 years or whatever it is of being out of sync with evolution, and suddenly we're being brought into sync, and it's your time to manifest this fifth dimensional crystalline light body higher version of yourself. Yay! Off you go. And it's some fat unconscious pizza and McDonald's, Ajax football, politically oriented, version of yourself. Sorry, you're probably not going to make the jump to light speed. So you're going to have to be composted. And that is not going to be an enjoyable experience in this day and age. It's going to be terrible. So it's very exciting, extremely challenging, and you are designed perfectly to pull it off. And you've got me and Mayke to help you, which is the best news ever.
It's so good. Oh my God. And personally for me doing my work right now, it lights me up so much.
Yeah.
I feel so
That's
alive,
right.
so grateful.
Yeah.
These are the times.
Yeah, you
These
said
are
it. It
the
lights you up
times.
and you feel so alive.
Oh.
That's exactly what everyone listening to this should be saying every day of their life. The way I'm living my life.
Exactly. That's how you should be feeling. And that's what you should be doing with your time, with your life, with your energy, the way you're working, the way you're breathing, the way you're walking around. It should feel like that.
That's right. That's exactly right.
So let's close off with that. Thank you, Nick. It's lovely to have this talk again.
Yay.
Love diving deep.
Yeah.
And I hope we've inspired some of you listening to dive deep within yourselves, to practice love, to practice forgiveness, to practice inclusion, and
to see the world as a mirror, to see reality as a gigantic mirror of such incredible wonder, reflecting the wonder of yourself, the dark wonder, the negative wonder, and the positive.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It's a wonder. It's absolutely a mind-blowing wonder that the controllers and architects of control of this planet are doing what they're doing. It's mind-blowingly a mind-blowing wonder. But it's a negative one. We want to manifest the positive wonder.
Oh, and the mind-blowing wonder is the power that we have, the power that you talked about. So, oh my God.
That's
I'm
right.
so excited for the whole planet to wake up, and it's happening right now.
Yeah.
So if you're listening, I want to thank you because you're part of this awakening.
You are.
Otherwise, you wouldn't be here, you wouldn't be listening. It means you're on the edge, you're on the front lines. Otherwise, you would not have listened to the end of this without, trying to throw your phone out of the window or something. If you're still here, you're part of this movement and you play a big role in this change that we're in.
Yes, we do.
So thank you for listening. Thank you for opening your heart. And we'll see you in the next podcast.
Yay.